The minor pentatonic scale can be considered as somewhat of a holy grail in modern guitar soloing. The problem is a lot of guitar players get lost on the fretboard when they're trying to learn it. What they don't understand is that it's just 5 notes. Pent means 5, tonic means note, hence 5-note scale. At the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to use it full fretboard, whether you're playing over backing tracks, writing solos for your band, or whatever it is that you want to do to create melodic freedom on the fretboard. Let's get into the lesson. First things first, let's talk about how most people learn the minor pentatonic scale. Well, what I want to talk about actually is the terminology. We tend to learn the shape that you can see on the screen, and you are taught that this is the minor pentatonic scale, where actually the right terminology for this is that this is just one shape of the minor pentatonic scale, okay? So, as you can see in the labeling, it is A minor pentatonic position 1, E shape. Now we're going to come back to the E shape thing in a moment, but if we just walk through the shape that is written on the fretboard diagram there, we're starting at a root note which is at the 5th fret in the key of A minor, okay? So I'm learning this, or I'm going through this with you in the key of A minor, because that's a very common guitar key. We can talk about how to change keys and everything in a moment, but this one will start at our 5th fret. So what we're going to do is, with your first finger, you're going to play the 5th fret on the E string, then you're going to go to the 8th fret with the 4th finger, and then we're going to play 5, 7 with fingers 1 and 3 on the A string, and then we're going to do that on the D and the G string. Then on your B string, we're going to be playing frets 5, 8, again with fingers 1, and then do the same thing on the high E string as well. Now that is a shape that most people watching this video have probably seen 100 if not 1,000 times before. But what most people don't get onto is what I'm now shifting into on the fretboard diagrams here, is that we've got a minor pentatonic position 2, there is a position 3, a position 4, and a position 5. Now, how we end up at the 5 positions of this scale is because if we take the 5 notes of our scale and I play them along the length of the low E string, the notes in the scale are A, C, D, E, and G. Now, if I was to play them in that one position that we just talked about, shape 1, A, C, D, E, G, I'm basically just playing the exact same notes along the length of that E string. Now, each one of those notes can be a starting point for playing a new shape. So if I just jump back over to A minor pentatonic position 2 just quickly, what you'll see is that the starting note is starting at the 8th fret on that E string. Now that is where our last shape finished. So when I was playing shape 1, we were playing frets 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, etc. Shape 2 starts at the 8th fret there, okay? So then the whole shape would now go 8, 10, 7, 10, 7, 10, 7, 9, 8, 10, 8, 10. Now what we're doing here is we're just starting on the 2nd note of the scale and playing an entirely new shape. We are not playing any new notes. This is something that's very, very important takeaway from this lesson, is that when you start learning those new shapes and you're playing them up and down the entire fretboard all over the place, you're still only playing the same 5 notes. We're just playing different shapes of the same thing. Now what I just said about mapping the notes A, C, D, E and G along the E string there, that is a system that is called the caged system. So in order to properly understand what is going on with the minor pentatonic scale, we need to go back a step and look at the caged chord system. Now many of you watching this video have probably heard of the caged system, but perhaps don't understand it, or have certainly never been shown how to align the pentatonic scales with it so that you can see the fretboard. This is a very important thing to understand, is that caged is not a way of playing the guitar, it's a way of seeing the fretboard and seeing all of the musical options that are available to you. So the caged system is a chord system, okay? Now what it allows you to do is take a chord like you can see on the fretboard diagram there, which is a open position C major chord, okay? And what it's going to allow me to do is play that chord in 5 different positions along the neck. So I would imagine that many of you know this as the open C major chord. Now what I'm going to go to the next slide on my fretboard diagrams here, This is now showing a C chord in a bar chord position that I would imagine, again, that many of you already know. Now, the terminology as to why this means something to the cage system, we call this a C chord in its A shape. Now, that's because if I take this shape, if I play it like this with fingers 1, 2, 3, 4, if I take that down to the open position, it looks like an open A. So effectively, what we're going to do with caged is we're going to take the open position shapes of a C, A, G, E, and D major chord, and when we play those aligned along the fretboard like this, it allows us to play one chord in 5 different positions using those open position shapes. So if I now go along to the next chord form, this is what we call a C major chord in its G shape. Now, the reason that these are all going to be C chords is because of the notes contained within them. Okay, so when I'm holding this shape, yes, it does look like an open G chord, but it's a C chord because the notes that are contained within it are C, E, G, C, E, G, C. Obviously, this note here isn't contained in the shape, but it is in the arpeggio if I want to play the notes singularly. So if I now go along to the next shape, this one is a C chord in its E shape, because this shape, if I take it down here, looks like an open E. And last but not least, we have a C chord in its D shape. So what the caged system is allowing me to do there is play a C major chord in 5 positions. So this is a C chord in its C shape, this is a C chord in its A shape, this is a C chord in its G shape, this is a C chord in its E shape, and this is a C chord in its D shape. Now, a huge part of the confusion here is a lot of guitar players, especially ones that have taken my online guitar courses and whatever, when they reach out to me in the beginning, they start saying, I've heard of this thing called the cage system, but how on earth does that align to the scales and show me how to understand the fretboard? Well, the missing piece here is that most guitar players have never been shown the EDCAG system. Let's have a look at the EDCAG system and then how we can align scales to it, because this is an absolute game changer. So the EDCAG system, what you're seeing on the fretboard now is an E chord in its open E position. Now, what this is going to provide us when we play an E chord in 5 different shapes is a scaffold of which that we can overlay scales, arpeggios, or anything else. Now, in our case, in this particular video, we're going to do this with pentatonic forms. So, what we are going to call this now is not an E chord in its E shape, because that is confusing terminology. What we want to do is refer to this as an E chord in shape 1. So therefore, right next door to that, we would have an E chord in shape 2, and of course an E chord in shape 3. This looks like a open position C chord, but we don't want to be thinking about it like that anymore. We want to just think of this purely as an E chord in shape 3. You have an E chord in shape 4. Last but not least, your E chord in shape 5. And once you understand the EDCAG system, what you're looking at is a chordal scaffold of E chord shapes or forms being position 1, D chord forms being position 2, C chord forms being position 3, A chord forms being position 4, and G chord forms being position 5. The next really important thing that we need to do is look at changing this into the key of A minor. So what we've just been looking at is the EDCAG system, or the caged system, in its numerical order. So we're looking at E chord shapes as shape 1. What we're going to do is we're now going to look at the minor chordal system, okay? And we're going to change the key again to A minor. So what you can see on the slides right now is that this is an A minor chord, position 1, in brackets, it's E shape. That's the old terminology for this. I want you to now think of this as an A chord, an A minor chord in shape 1. Many of you will recognise this as a traditional A minor bar chord. What you'll also see on the fretboard diagram here is I've put a circle around these 3 notes. Okay, now these 3 notes, if I play them on my guitar, they are where the A root notes live. Now that is very, very important information so that you can understand how to change key with this stuff. So what we've got on the diagram next here is an A minor chord in position 2 or shape 2. which in the old terminology, this was the D form. Next up, you've got your A minor chord in shape 3, A minor chord in shape 4, and last but not least, A minor chord in shape 5. And once you have that basic chordal structure, what we're going to do is be able to put on top of each one of those chords a minor pentatonic form. If we now just go back a step to looking at the minor pentatonic forms, what we want to be doing in our fretboard visualization, mind's eye, so to speak, is be able to see an A minor chord in shape 1 and then be able to superimpose over the top of that an A minor pentatonic scale, which we would see and refer to as A minor pentatonic in shape 1. So then of course we've got A minor pentatonic in shape 2. Now you'd want to be able to see the chord form and of course the root notes, so that you're seeing where the root notes are of your shape, and then be able to play shape 2. So if you've got your guitar, you can play through this with me. On your E string we're going to play 8-10, then on with the A string we're going to play 7-10, then we're going to play 7-10 again, 7-9, and then lastly 8-10, 8-10. Now, as a rock and blues guitar player on the top 2 strings, you'd probably want to use fingers 1 and 3 because you're highly likely to be bending strings. So wherever you possibly can, you want to use fingers 1 and 3 for adding expression like vibrato and bending and stuff like that. A lot of other players would recommend sticking purely to finger per fret. There isn't really anything wrong with that, but as I say, as a rock and blues guitar player, it's kind of hard to add the expression that you'd want to when you're not using fingers 1 and 3. So do whatever works for you and the style of music that you're in, but what I recommend to my students is fingers 1 and 3 wherever possible. But then of course we've got a shape 3 scale form, so you want to be able to visualize the minor chord shape 3 like this, and then superimpose over the top of it the entire pentatonic scale. So if you've got your guitar, we're going to play this together. You can use fingers 1 and 3 for this shape in its entirety in the key of A minor. We're going to play 10-12, 10-12, 10-12, 9-12, 10-13, 10-12. Then we've got shape 4, so visualise your A minor chord in shape 4, followed by the shape 4 scale. So frets wise, this is 12-15, 12-15, 12-14, 12-14, 13-15, 12-15. And lastly, of course, shape 5. So we have this horrible chord form. And then the scale shape is 15-17, 15-17, 14-17, 14-17, 15-17, 15-17. So they're the 5 shapes of your minor pentatonic scale, and what you want to be able to do is just play up and down them one at a time. So you can do shape 1, shape 2, shape 3, shape 4, shape 5. So something that I want to clear up here is how people look at major pentatonic. So something that a lot of guitar players are told is to use a shortcut, that if you want to learn how to play over something like C major pentatonic, it's that C major and A minor are relative major and minor. Now that is correct and true information, but what guitar players are then told is the minor pentatonic scale forms are the same as the major pentatonic scale forms, but what you need to do is, if you find a C, if you want to play in C major, which would say is at the 8th fret on your E string, go 3 frets down from that and you can just play minor pentatonic shape 1, and that gives you C major pentatonic. That is correct, but if you are doing that, you're not actually thinking about the notes that are in that particular pentatonic scale. So I've met plenty of guitar players over the years that really struggle to solo over major keys because they're always trying to use that shortcut of thinking about where's the relative minor. Now, the cure for this is to actually understand the major pentatonic as it works on the fretboard. So what we're looking at here on the slide is A major pentatonic pentatonic position 1 in its E form, or its E shape. Now what you can see here is that the formula for this scale, we've got root 2, major 3, 5, major 6, as opposed to the minor pentatonic where we had root minor 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7. So of course they're completely different scales, but how you can view this, and this is the shortcut people are told, is if you look at this shape here, it would be shape 2 of F sharp minor pentatonic, which is the relative minor pentatonic of A major. Now you don't have to learn an entirely new set of shapes. The best way to really get this into your mind and hear it the way that you should be is to look at it from, this is the shape 1 scale form of A major pentatonic, okay? And not be trying to think of this as shape 2 of F sharp minor pentatonic, which is the relative minor of A major. It's sending you all around the houses and leads to confusion. So the good news is that you don't have to learn a whole load of new shapes. It's all the same shapes, but you want to just learn that this is shape 1 of A major pentatonic, and this is shape 2 of A major pentatonic. Yes, it looks exactly the same as shape 3 of F sharp minor pentatonic, but try not to think of it that way to avoid the confusion. Now the next problem that most guitar players face when they're trying to learn all of this stuff is that they can't connect the entire fretboard. So what you want to be able to see once you've learned those 5 shapes is, rather than 5 isolated areas of the fretboard, you want to be able to see the entire neck so that you can just go, right, this is where A minor pentatonic lives. Now a great exercise that you can do to start connecting these areas up is play up one shape and then down the next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play up A minor pentatonic shape 1, then immediately descend shape 2, up shape 3, down shape 4, up shape 5. Now you can come back, or you can do that in different orders. You can start descending or ascending, but being able to do that very simple exercise helps you to see the fretboard like this. So if I wanted to, I could play A minor pentatonic all along the length of the high E string, or the B string on the G string. I can play shapes, so you can see, if I just outline shape 1 here, root minor 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7, root minor 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7, etc. I could draw a box around that shape in that part of the guitar neck, or I could go to shape 2 and draw a box around that. But what I'm seeing is the entire fretboard all in one go, which means when I want to jam over a backing track, or I'm playing with a band or anyone, whatever it is that I'm doing, and the backing is just purely A minor, I can go wherever I want because we can see the fretboard. So at this point we are thinking in terms of caged, but we're seeing it as one entire thing on the whole fretboard, so you can go wherever you want to. Now of course the end game here is not just to be able to learn the scales and be able to see the fretboard like that, but is to make music. So one of the things that you want to start doing is look at a couple of different ways to develop vocabulary on the fretboard. The first one is to have shape-based ideas, which will be vertical licks and lines and runs. So things that you can play, a basic guitar lick like this, and you want to be seeing that as shape 1 vocabulary. You want to have something similar in shape 2. Shape 3 ideas. So you have a list of licks and runs and things like that you can play in each shape. The second way to look at using the fretboard is to play lateral ideas. So something where you start an idea in one shape like this, and then you play that again in the next shape. Well, the third way is to have combination playing, and that's when you start playing an idea maybe somewhere down low, like in shape 5 like this, and you end up all the way up in shape 4 up here, because what you do is you play a little bit of vertical vocabulary and then slide into the next shape, so something like this. What you've just seen there is me starting a low position of this scale and work all the way up the fretboard to a high position, and I'm just playing things inside each one of those different shapes, but of course I'm seeing the fretboard as one organic musical device that I can use all over the entire fretboard. Now for most players you'll probably want to be able to do that in context, either with a band or if you're just playing at home for fun for yourself over a backing track, a bit like this. See the value in learning the fretboard this way and developing your musical vocabulary like this, wait till you take the next step, because that's exactly what I show you inside my cutting edge guitar soloing method. That's a free course that I've put together to help you crush the 3 big areas that most guitar players need to crush if they want to be a good guitar soloist. That is understanding your fretboard properly, having good enough technique to be able to execute your ideas, and developing a musical vocabulary that allows you to play, solo and jam over any backing track or with a band or whatever it is that you want to do. All you have to do to get access to that course is go to the link that is in the description box underneath this video, drop in your email address and I will send you a full PDF booklet that guides you through everything, supported by 3 full-length video lessons. Once you go through that, you'll know exactly what you need to do to be able to solo however you want to. I look forward to seeing you in your next lesson. Take care.